earn more money but too busy to start a side hustle? Do it the right way and teach your money to make more money for yourself, even when you're asleep. Dale Corpus will show you just how here on the School of Cash Flow. With his entrepreneurial mindset and extensive experience in real estate and finance, Dale will help you become a responsible, strategic, and passionate passive real estate investor. Learn how you can increase your earnings or find more ways to make money, only here on the School of Cash Flow.
Good afternoon and welcome to the School of Cash Flow podcast. I'm the host, Dale Corpus. Happy New Year, everybody. It's 2023 and today is my first episode of the year. I'm jazzed to bring on my great guest of the year. His name is Josh Hatter, and he's crushing it in the short-term vacation rental space. A little more backstory on Josh is that after spending nearly 20 years of his professional career growing businesses, primarily supporting the Navy, he decided to rent a single bedroom out of his home in 2016. And since then, that single bedroom, nearly 7 years ago, he has grown a portfolio into several businesses owning investment short-term rentals and actual bed and breakfast properties, both alone and with partners. So his management portfolio spans 8 cities in 2 states and continually grows annually at a rate of over 100% in the last 3 years. And he loves supporting his clients, growing their investment and hosting thousands of guests as they visit Charleston and the Smokies through his property management company, Coastal Vacation Properties. So awesome bio, Josh. Welcome to the show, Josh. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So for my audience that doesn't know you yet, where in the world are you based out geographically? Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
I am based out of Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay. And let's see, were you always like, it sounds like you were doing other businesses prior, primarily supporting the Navy. It's like, I'm curious, how did you even get involved in real estate, investing and the property management thing?
Yeah, it's kind of by chance, like a lot of good things in life, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I actually, so I was part of a corporate-wide layoff back in 2012 from a large Fortune 500 company that was splitting into 2 public companies, laid off 700 people. I was one of the 700. So it was, really kind of like just something to try back 2012 before the proliferation of Airbnb. So that was on listed my 1-bedroom condo downtown on VRBO.
Yeah.
And got shut down almost immediately. It was against the HOA, so I got shut down within like 2 or 3 months. But that was my first shot at it. And then I kind of played with some other entrepreneurial ideas on the side for a couple years. Before listing my first property that my bio mentions on Airbnb in 2016, and have been doing it ever since, and just kind of playing real life Monopoly is what I like to say.
Okay, got it. So were you primarily an investor first, and then because of that experience, then you started the property management company, or did the property management company come first?
No, so the property management company came later, actually. So I definitely, I'm a student of history, and I think I am smart enough to recognize I got pretty lucky on timing as far as starting to really heavily invest in real estate, coming out of the financial bubble that burst there in 0809, and so really having some success with the Fed's easy money policy for the last 10 years, and how it was just so cheap to get into real estate, and made investment real estate a great asset class that had some great cash on cash return. So kind of was fortunate to experience that policy, and got lucky on that very first condo in 2012. I made like 31% in 30 months. It was crazy to me. I've lived in Charleston since 1999 by way of Washington, D.C. area. And so it was crazy to me at the time how much a 1-bedroom condo was going for. So sold that and just, traded up to the 3-bedroom house. That was when I started listing something on Airbnb, eventually moved out of there and sold that house, bought a duplex, lived in the duplex while I was renovating it, something I hope I never have to do again. And, actually, I told myself, hey, I got to be out of here by March 1st of 2020, which I was pretty close to. But then, of course, we had COVID, which came along within 2 weeks with a shutdown. So, yeah, just been kind of, playing Monopoly ever since, and bought another duplex, which we sold a few months ago, flipped that, did a 1031 into our second bed and breakfast property. That's a relatively new asset class for us. We bought the first one April 7th of last year. Just kind of a little bit of a strategy shift for us getting into actual B&Bs, and then eventually boutique hotels in the next couple of years is the plan.
So initially, when you first started, renting out, and getting to that, just renting rental properties, it sounds like you were kind of house hacking. Is that correct?
Yeah,
For
definitely,
initially
definitely.
properties, but you were posting it, doing short-term rentals of, of the rooms, I guess, by room or whatnot.
Yep.
That's a cool strategy. And,
It's
you
exhausting, but it worked.
yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a good way to get started, though. It's like you were
Yeah.
talking about because you got started like right around the last crash
Yep.
and whatnot, and you were talking about Fed guidelines being a little looser and whatnot or easier back then. Are we talking about more so the mortgage types of guidelines that are there, or what were we
Yeah,
talking?
really, really the terms, right? So, in the last year, we've had the basically doubling of interest rates effectively.
Yeah.
So if there, you already had rising asset prices, which it kind of compressed returns to begin with. Now you accompany that with interest rates that are twice as high, and the popularity of Airbnb. When I first started doing this 10 years ago, Airbnb certainly was not popular. And I like to say my old college buddies quite literally laughed in my face, like, you're doing what, renting your house out. And now you can't watch a YouTube video or Instagram reel, or listen to a podcast without hearing about somebody doing something with Airbnb as a side hustle. So I got fortunate enough, I think, to get a little bit ahead of that wave when it was weird 10 years ago, and now kind of shifting strategies as it's become so much more common, and rates of return for the asset class have gotten compressed.
Okay, got it. And so, for your short-term vacation rental, property management company, Coastal Vacation Properties, where are you mainly helping what kind of clients you serve and what areas and whatnot, and what property types do you work with?
Sure. Yeah. So that I started actually, one of my very first clients. I actually sent out a very specific mailer to about 150 properties in Charleston that was hyper targeted toward long-term rentals that were eligible to be short-term rentals at the time. And so I got my first, did rental arbitrage, and did a 2-year lease. That property actually got like 3 months into the lease, got an offer unsolicited on the building. So I actually wound up getting paid 50 grand to get out of that lease. Just, several months into it. And I use that kind of as a seed in order to start my property management company. And so now we do the traditional model where we charge a percentage of revenue as our general business model. My very first client actually owned the two properties next to my first short-term rental that I owned. And so we actually had an attorney across the street that loved to harass short-term rentals in the neighborhood. And so that's what kind of got him and I talking. I probably should find that person and thank them, because this guy wound up being my first client. So I managed those. He actually had those two and another property. This was, I think, 2017-ish. So 2018-ish. And he sold those two this last summer. So I still manage his third one. But yeah, so I grew that a bit. I had 21 listings when I quit my corporate career, December 19th of 21, and we have about 60 now. So we've definitely kind of exploded. A lot of that is the couple of bed and breakfasts that I own.
Yep.
So basically about a third of what my property management company manages, I own either all or a piece of.
Got it. Obviously, being a property management company, catered to, the short-term rental space versus a regular, long-term rental requires more work. I mean, a lot of turnover. I'm curious, like how often like what's the minimum booking? Is it like 2, 3 days a minimum, or is it a
Yeah.
little?
So the B&Bs are much more like regular hotels. You can stay one night. We did the one we sold to buy the second B&B was a 8 bedroom, 8 bath that slept 16. So you do a one night stay there, you're kind of asking for it. But yeah, we typically have a 2 night minimum for most of our properties, except for the actual B&Bs. You can do one night stays there.
Got it. And are most of your listings, for your placed on Airbnb, or is it something else?
Yeah. So actually, as a result of just kind of how things unfolded during COVID, we went into COVID. I was about 95% on Airbnb. There's been a huge push in trying to get direct bookings over the last couple of years. There's a lot of companies that very specifically cater to that niche. There's a lot more control over that. A lot more ability to control the pricing and the relationship with the client, and have them, stay at the same property or others in your portfolio. So actually, we finished 2022 right at around 58% on Airbnb. We have properties on Verbo, Booking.com, and then direct. So 2021, we had like 2% direct, 22 was about 13%. We have a goal of hitting 30% this year. So it's kind of trying to keep shifting in that direction and own the customer relationship a little bit better.
No, I don't own any short-term rentals right now. So wanted to know, like, how do you make a short-term rental stand out against the competition, other short-term rentals and other hotels, or what do you guys do?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest single shift over the last several years is the supply has just grown so much now that if you don't have a good property in a good popular area, that really is trying to strive to target a certain demographic, it's just not as successful. So, I think you saw for a long time there'd be like random suburban properties, like it's not against the HOA or there is no HOA in the property, so you might see it listed on Airbnb or another OTA. But yeah, you don't. I think those are the people that are going to get squeezed out now, as people have to be a little bit more careful as investors, just given the cost of capital rising. But yeah, it's generally, there's certain features that we look for. Charleston gets super uncomfortably hot and humid in the summer, so if a place has a pool, that's obviously a big selling point.
Yep.
And then location is obviously huge for real estate. So, if you've got something that's close to kind of the main shopping points, tourist attractions downtown, that's huge as well too. So just a little like data, throw out a data tip that our Airbnb account manager gave us recently. The stuff in the Smokies that we manage, supply is actually up 30% over the last 12 months. And the number of booked nights is up only 5%. And so, that's the supply demand imbalance that I'm kind of talking about. There hasn't been like any real reckoning yet.
Yep.
With that. But the people that were kind of stretching to get into this asset class initially will likely be the ones that are impacted and marginalized first. So it'll be kind of interesting to watch things play out now that the cost of capital has doubled.
Yeah, I mean, with the economy going through its next downturn right now as we speak, I mean, it's like, what are the challenges, or what's the chatter about, people taking potentially less vacations, or just the numbers getting affected, but for even your own clients and whatnot. I mean, what are your feelings and thoughts about all of that?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I feel like we've heard that for a little bit here. 2022 rates were actually up 23, 24% over 2021 rates. I think that will stabilize. Some of that is just, you lock up people for a certain period of time, as we saw in 2020, and then they're going to pay anything to get out of where they were, just to have their normal family vacations. So I think rates will kind of stabilize. I haven't seen any significant pullback, but I have heard people, starting to complain about some of the rate decreases that they've seen. And frankly, I think those are the people that were making such great money, 5 to 10 years ago. but maybe they haven't necessarily continually reinvested in that property. And this is just not an asset class where you can constantly extract value. You always have to be looking at what else can I do better. Otherwise, at some point, the ratings will start to deteriorate, and it's really hard to bounce back from that once it happens.
Okay, I got it. I mean, another side question that I have, because again, I don't, this is a new space for me, is do you also try to like, do you offer any sort of, do you create experiences for the client? Or do you have any concierge type of services, like to almost like compete with hotels in this type of space with short-term
Yeah.
rentals?
So there's a couple of things. We've got a help desk set up. So when I kind of started this many years ago, the big differentiator that I saw was in the response time, that and price, right? And so nobody wants to differentiate on price. That's a horrible business model. So what I think I noticed early on is people have anywhere from 0 to 2 questions before they book. And so if they have 0 questions, they just book instantly, good to go. If they have 1 or 2 questions, the faster you can get a response to those questions, the more likely they are to book immediately. And so I kind of had a 30-minute standard in response time, back then, and we've maintained that. So it's something that we measure every single week. Anybody that has the ability to respond to guests, we can see how many messages they've responded to, and if they've met that metric. So yeah, that's just one little thing that we try to do to not make sure we're not like Comcast. Somebody calls the helpline, and then they don't get a human being on the phone within a certain period of time. There's a lot of other little. So the cool thing about this asset class is with the proliferation of Airbnb the last decade, there's so many companies that are attacking just very niche problems within the space. So, I talked to some guys that they're called Raging Raccoon. The only thing they do is collect trash. So they plug into your property management system software, and they'll come pick up the trash 5 days a week after a stay. So regardless of if you have, 3 bachelor parties within that same week, these guys are picking up the trash. So that way it doesn't pile up outside. There's a company called Touch Stay that we use. You connect to the Wi-Fi through what's called StayFi, and then the next link you see is a property-specific digital guidebook. So it's a very specific guidebook for your property that has recommendations, places to eat, the local tourist attractions within a half a mile, things like that are specific to your property. And then you can save that to your phone during your stay and kind of optimize the guest experience, if you will. So there's a lot of little things like that have really changed the space over the last 5 years. I'm always trying something. To me, that's kind of the cool part, is the constant innovation. And to your point, really trying to make the guest experience better and more comparable to what you might see in a major hotel chain.
For folks that are considering, doing short-term rentals, when they're searching for areas, for markets in general, what would you even look for, or what do people look for to know that a short-term rental market is a good one or not?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's another thing that in hindsight, I got incredibly fortunate with. The weather is good here most of the year. So, some of the places in the Northeast that are more tourist attractions, you have much shorter peak seasons. And so, you have a much shorter period of time to be able to really make an excellent return. But yeah, I mean, if the reality is, if you buy dirt and hold it over any 20 to 50 year cycle, it's going to be very hard to lose money. But there are so many different growing areas, especially with this asset class, that are making a bunch of top lists. Charleston is one of those. If you Google best places to go, there's a bunch of little tourist attraction lists that we've made over the last 10 years. But yeah, really, seasonality is a huge thing. Making sure people want to go there throughout the course of the year, as opposed to just 3 months before the weather shifts. And then the ability to regulate what is there. One of the issues, that data point I mentioned in the Smokies. I mean, if you can take any property and put it online as a short-term rental almost immediately, there's really nothing that's holding back the supply growth there anymore, right? where like downtown Charleston, there's very specific regulations. Each municipality has its own rules, its own licensing process, permitting process, both for managers and investor clients, our owners. So that's something else to be wary of. You don't want to be somewhere where you buy an asset that you think you can have as a short-term rental and then realize that you can't based on regulatory environment. So you kind of want to have a more mature regulatory environment. Otherwise, you're really taking an unnecessary risk that the assets could get shut down for what your intent was.
Okay. In the areas where you do your property management for your short-term rentals listings, what like if like I'm like I'm not sure if you put thought into this, but maybe you have. If they were just rented it out as regular, 1 year type of listings, how much? What would kind of be that multiple? I know that short-term rental supercharges the rents, but would it kind of like 2x it, or maybe even 3x the types of rents seen, or what is that multiple?
Yeah. So there is some seasonality for sure, but yeah, it's all of these properties that you're buying with the intent of being a short-term rental generally are not going to work as a long-term rental.
Yeah.
That's you're trying to buy them in popular areas, right? So you're going to need that higher income. But yeah, I mean, just depending on the season, for instance, like Charleston is anywhere from 2 to 4 times, depending on the time of year, for what you might normally see in a long-term rental, and sometimes even higher than that if the property is unique.
Okay. But there, when it's, and then like peak season for your areas, I mean, is it like, for example, is it more dead during the winter time? Is it more popular in the summertime, or what's the seasonality like in the places that you're renting at?
Sure. Yeah. So our peak season really starts. There's a big wildlife festival in Charleston in mid February. So that's kind of like the kickoff of peak season, and then that really lasts really like October. There is a little bit of a dip in August because it's just so incredibly hot and humid here. So the rates typically dip in August, but then things kind of pick up for September and October. And then you have a little bit of a lull in December, November, December, January. That's really kind of when we suggest if somebody has a project they need to get done that takes longer than a couple of days. That's when we'll suggest for them to do that, shut the property down in January. And then the Smokies, I mean, very similarly, like we have a lot of people that will come throughout the summer, huge summer vacation, like being able to go hike in the mountains. And then even the holidays are huge. People, have multiple families come. It's supposedly the most drivable vacation destination in the country.
Yep.
So if you look at the percentage of people that can make it within an 8-hour drive, it's something like 70% of the U.S. Can go to the Smokies within 8 hours. So lots of people will stay there for holidays as well too.
In terms of systems for your property management business, I'm curious. Well, systems and teams. I'm curious to know what your structure is of, like, with the people that you have, because I know that there's obviously a lot of turnover. I mean, I'm curious, how big's your team? Like even your staff internally, and just like cleaners. I don't even know if those are on staff or if you outsource that stuff, and how much do you rely on technology because you're managing a lot of properties.
Yeah, it really. So our average stay is like right at 3 days. So it definitely, and you're going through the whole process every single time, right? So, yeah, it's something that you really have to have systems and processes in place for. We have I think we have 6 employees now, and we're actually trying to hire for 2 additional positions here actively today. I think one of the biggest mistakes I've made in this business as a manager is trying to hire the cleaners myself. So I spent probably like 6 to 9 months trying to do that, capturing that margin for myself. And it's a tough business. The turnover is high.
Yep.
And so, we have a few key contractors now that we have relationships with, and we're the majority of their business. And so we work with them on scheduling, but then the actual hiring and meeting our standards is up to them as far as the staffing piece. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely.
So what kind of what are the staff roles, out of curiosity? What's kind of the breakdown?
Sure. Yeah. So we have, I was fortunate enough to hire our guest services manager away from a higher end hotel here last year. Amazing, brings that hospitality experience and has that type of background. So, bringing that high end hotel hospitality experience to the short-term rental market. I've got a property operations manager, so she's kind of the boots on the ground as far as the day-to-day operations and maintenance. If there's any annual licensing or permitting, she's handling that. The guest services manager, and then also our housekeeping manager. We do have the housekeeping manager is one of our employees, so you kind of have to check the checkers, if you will. And so we do have a housekeeping manager as well, and she helps manage the contractors, but then also obviously there are a lot of things that go into every single turnover as far as supplies, laundries, linens, all that type of stuff. So she handles that, and then kind of my right hand person, VP of client operations, and she will do the owner reports, monthly payouts, interact with our clients if they have any questions. And has an HR and finance background. So she watches a lot of the pennies. She's better at watching pennies than I am. So, and then also, when she came on board, we didn't even have any W-2 employees. So that was kind of part of the value add for her and her human resources background. So that's kind of the skill breakdown. I have a sales background, so I've done all the sales to date by myself. That's actually one of the positions we're actively hiring for. It's just gotten to be too much for me to handle by myself. So that's kind of the next piece.
How did you even did you have a lot of mentors in the space to get you, up and going, or how'd you fill up your knowledge gaps along the way, when this all just stumbled upon you?
Yeah, it's I think I failed a lot.
Well, he kept falling forward at least.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, you never, I think that's just something you embrace as an entrepreneur, right? Like you're not going to necessarily have like the perfect solution right out of the gate for something. And so that's, I'm okay with that. If we can get something that's like a 60-75% solution and build that to a 95, nothing is ever going to be perfect. There's always room to improve. So, I've definitely gotten staffing decisions wrong. I think that's probably been the most costly. But yeah, I think it's just like I read constantly. I probably read 25 to 35 books a year, depending on the year. Rely on recommendations a lot, but I'm always trying to implement principle. And that's all. Like I don't have the ability to read fiction for whatever reason. I just feel like time is too valuable. So I'm always reading personal development and entrepreneur books.
Have you always had this entrepreneurial spirit even as a kid?
I wouldn't say that. I definitely knew how soul-sucking corporate America was.
Yeah.
That was definitely like, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to die doing that, despite making a good, stable salary for a long time. I just knew that I wanted more control over my own destiny. So, and wanted to take bigger risks too. We work with large Fortune 500 companies. They're not built to do that, right? Like it's very measured risk in every decision for every contract they go after. So, I knew I always wanted to do something. I think didn't know what. Like if you had told me, 10 years ago when I started doing this that I'd be here, I probably would have laughed. But it's just one of those things that's kind of funny how life works out.
Back then, were you listening to, how you started renting out rooms? Were you already listening to podcasts or anything like that, like Bigger Pockets?
No, I really had, like, I think some of it, like I certainly have met people over the years that have done it. Like COVID, a lot of the local managers kept in touch, right? Like, hey, what are you seeing as far as demand? Those types of things. And then, I mean, I'm always trying to learn. So whether it's through one of our existing vendors or software providers suggesting another vendor, or just, me being on a bunch of mailing lists now and I get something in my inbox suggesting a new platform. Like we're always trying something new to see if it works. Kind of my pitch as a property manager is I always try new things out on my own stuff. And that way, if it breaks or it doesn't work or there's not enough value add, then I just can it. I don't roll it out to the rest of the management portfolio, but we're always trying something new to try to get better.
Yeah, I want to switch topics to bed and breakfast because I don't know anybody really investing in them except you. So, let's talk about that as investments. Like, what got you into that asset class, and why do you like that asset class?
Yeah, actually, so you kind of just hit the nail on the head. You don't know anybody doing it, right? So, and that's like you can't, like I said, you can't throw a ball without hitting somebody that has a short-term rental these days, I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's really kind of part of it. So we kind of fell into the first one. Actually were not even serving breakfast when we closed on it April 7th last year, but they had the bed and breakfast permit.
Okay.
So it just kind of it allows you to be able to not have to live on site. Again, permitting differs, by locality, but allows you to rent out each individual room without living on site. And so that's kind of the model that we were following there. The only change that we made was we actually installed a breakfast bar and put in a breakfast partner that comes by every morning at 7:30 and delivers, these delicious sausage, egg, and cheese, bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches, right? And so they drop that off for us every morning. We started that in July. We shut down for renovations. We're putting a significant amount of money into it now, but we ran it for 7 months. The only thing we did was optimize management and add breakfast back, and we went from a $165 ADR to $229. So 39% increase in price just from optimizing management, since they weren't using dynamic pricing previously.
Yeah.
And the goal is to go up about another 70% with a significant amount of investment that we're doing, really giving this entire property a facelift. And so we'll launch that in the next 8 weeks here or so, in mid-March. But yeah, it's the ability. It's two things that are hugely different: the ability to do one night stays, which helps fill in occupancy gaps, and the ability to rent out room by room. So it's, unless you have a special permit, that's not typically something you can do. But the returns are far higher than just doing a normal short-term rental that has, for instance, 9 bedrooms. That's how big our B&Bs are.
Yeah, it's similar to like house hacking, but per room. And it's like I see that you're bringing in all of that property management expertise you have in the STR space, and then bringing it in so like you could make all of the systems, just that much more efficient. So you're saving money out of there. That sounds amazing. Like, how did you even find that bed and breakfast property? What was it
They
like?
actually just listed it as a real estate transaction for sale. I am incredibly fortunate. I met my one of I should say my first partner. I have a second one now on the investing side, but my first partner owns his own. Thanks, Cameron O'Connor. Owns his own short-term rental renovation home builder. He also builds spec homes, beautiful spec homes out on Kiowa Island. But he specializes in historic home preservation and renovation.
Mhm.
And so kind of the combination between the two of us, this first one that we bought is 150 years old. And so, it has 150-year-old problems. So the things that would have scared me from a renovation perspective just don't anymore because of this great partner that I have. And then, to your point, I kind of bring the value add on the management side. So banks tend to like that as far as mitigating their own risk.
As it relates to your own personal investment portfolio, or just, I'm not sure if you're growing this bed and breakfast thing as these investments as a business. Is it just for your own self? Or are you trying to go it even bigger and create a fund or anything like that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's kind of the next step. So, yeah, the typical structure is you have the propco or property company, and that owns the real estate itself, and then you have the opco or operating company, which is the bed and breakfast. And so then the bed and breakfast pays the property company rent every month, and then you operate the business out of the operating company. So both of our assets are set up that way. So there's basically two companies for each B&B. But yeah, the goal. So we took on a third partner for the second one, branding expert, kind of runs a media company that is partnered with Forbes on their publishing side. So a branding expert, and kind of really starting to brand each of these properties individually as part of a boutique hotel collection. And so that's kind of the next piece is acquiring another 2 properties in Charleston this year. And we've actually identified our next half a dozen markets outside of Charleston in the Southeast, and we've prioritized those markets. And I actually have an analyst kind of going through and helping evaluate deals and creating a deal pipeline. So the thought is that we probably will buy the next 2 assets ourselves, and then look at doing a capital raise sometime in 2024 I really want to scale this collection. So.
Okay. In terms of like the deal flow that you're doing, are you looking for stuff that's like off market? Are you just hitting up sellers directly, or how are you going about just finding these properties?
Yeah, I mean, it's really boring. We actually we've got a couple of virtual assistants that help out on the guest services side, and so as one of their kind of projects in the background, they just Googled, hey, here are our top half a dozen markets, and they Googled, hey, what are the top 50 to 100 boutique hotels and bed and breakfast, and just literally looking at what those top ratings are, making a spreadsheet out of that, and kind of using that as the initial target list, if you will, and then the analyst will kind of dig a little deeper, figure out who the owner is, owner contact information, how many suites, and really dig in and reach out and contact the owner to figure out if the property is for sale or not. So that's really, just kind of old fashioned grinding and reaching out to see if anybody is interested in selling. Is a very specific asset class, to your point. Like it's so you've got like hospitality groups that own lots of these, and then you have a lot of for lack of a better word, mom and pop owner operators, and this is generally their last gig before they retire, right? So they're there every day on site, and they have a special relationship with their clients, and but some of them have been doing it for a long time, and they're tired, and they haven't been able to do any major renovations over the last several years, and then because they're more looking to retire, they're not looking to invest in technology either. So it's a pretty simple value add thesis on both the operating side and the property side. But yeah, it's just a matter of finding these deals the old fashioned way, grinding it out.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are some of the challenges that you see in your business in the short-term rental space right now?
So short-term, I'm a little scared for short-term rentals, having been in it so long. I worry. My very first client that sold 2 of his 3 properties, do anything for that guy. He took a chance on me to be a property manager before I was one, really.
Yeah.
And looking at the way that some people were analyzing those deals, I'd have somebody contact me and, hey, I have my spreadsheet. Can you look at this? I don't, I want to know if it makes sense. And I'd look at it and it would show a 6.4% cash on cash return. And I'm like, okay, look, like inflation at the time at 8%, right? You're making 6.4% cash on cash. Like, does this really seem like a good deal to you? So that's what's a little scary to me. Just, you have people that see it as an attractive asset class, but maybe don't understand the risks involved. And I worry that if there's a 20% pullback in, valuations, that they won't be able to sustain that, and they may get squeezed out, which you hate to see. So that's some of the kind of more inexperienced folks that are trying to break into the asset class, and you're generally reaching for your first one, right? Let's be honest. Anytime you do something for the first time, you're taking a risk trying to understand the new asset class. So that's kind of my biggest thing I worry about. On the investor side, kind of have a soft spot for people that are trying to make something better out of their lives, and taking those risks. So I worry about those people. The companies themselves, like, they're not going anywhere as far as Airbnb, Expedia, VRBO. They've got so many tens of thousands of listings, millions of listings really at this point. So they're certainly not going anywhere, and there's always going to be a certain demographic that wants to stay in their properties and a certain demographic that wants to stay in hotel chains. So I don't think either of those things are going away. In terms of what we're looking at, I think, I see risks, but I think for me, the biggest risk is deal flow. I think that there's such a huge opportunity if you can find the right properties. It's just a matter of being able to find enough of the right deals that have similar returns to what we've seen on our first 2, and then being able to bring those to more partners in the future. I'm more concerned about finding the right deals for deal flow in this new asset class that we're in, than I am going to raise money. Like, I think that part will actually be the easy part, because, like you said, I don't know a whole lot of people that are really getting into this asset class at this point.
Well, it's less saturated, so there's probably less competition for you at the same time, which is probably one of the reasons why you're also doing it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I'm curious about your own portfolio. Like, what has been what's been your best investment in your portfolio? Uh,
Oh, I mean, I probably just like betting on myself, right? So, my line is I took a $30,000 401k loan in 2012 to buy my very first downtown property, and that 30 grand is worth more than $5 million now. And so, like, from like all of corporate America, every cent I ever made in corporate America in 20 years is probably worth 400 grand, 450 grand. And so just that investing in myself and betting on myself has paid off
that's awesome.
literally, 12, 15 times what corporate America did. So
how'd you take that leap of faith to do that? Like, that's not, I want to get to that. What, did you read a book or something, or was somebody talk to you?
I seriously am like always reading stuff. I think I got 3 books going now, but no, I mean, I think it was just a combination of things. I knew that wasn't something I wanted to do forever. I think part of the like gentle lull of corporate America is that you can make decent money without working 100 hours a week sometimes. So people get lulled into that false sense of security, making a halfway decent salary. And it's enough, but it's never enough to do whatever you dream about doing, right? And if you really want to do what you dream about doing, you've got to take some level of additional risk.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I take it not everything's been a home run. Can I ask you, like, what's been the worst investment?
I've really been lucky like the last several years. I probably had some bad like individual stocks. I started investing in equities when I was 18, and promptly so I graduated high school in 1999, right? Which the dot-com bubble happened right after that. And so I promptly lost my like $3,000 to $5,000 was now 200. And so that was probably the best investment that I could make from terms of like losing so much so fast, and then being more careful to evaluate things in the future. But it was a lot of money to me at the time. As far as the real estate, like I've been really lucky to not experience any losses just over the last 10 years, and how crazy asset prices have risen. I've been really fortunate to ride that wave. So I've not experienced any significant losses yet. So hopefully I'll knock on something.
And inside note, I just found out today, obviously, like before we started recording, that you're also in GoBundance, just like I am. I've been, and in one sense, I'm not surprised. But it's like I wanted to ask you, it's like, what is GoBundance? What have you gotten out of GoBundance so far?
I really had, I think in the last 6 months since I've quit my corporate job, which was with the encouragement of some of the guys in GoBundance, and it's really people that want to experience the most of life in every area, right? Health and wealth, family, and so being around that type of person all the time really kind of changes your thinking. The last 6 months, I think I've realized how much I've stood in my own way over the last 20 years. And people have a lot of self-limiting beliefs and hold themselves back. And generally, like the people I mentioned 10 years ago, it was my old college buddies that were laughing at me, right? And what do those laughs come from? Oh, I don't understand it. Oh, I wish I could give that a shot. Or jealousy even, right? And that's generally what you kind of have in some area with people close to you. And so I've been super fortunate to be in this group for the last 2 years, and just I really was kind of feeling intellectually stagnant for a couple of years, and it just has really kind of opened my eyes to maybe I wasn't dreaming big enough. And I feel like just in the 2 years I've been in, my dreams have multiplied exponentially. So it's a really great group. Any mastermind, I think, is so important. It's important to be around like-minded people that have similar values and are striving to achieve similar goals in life. But yeah, GoBundance has been a game changer for me for the last 2 years.
I've had a lot of aha moments in GoBundance. It's like what I appreciate about the group is that the diversity of everybody. I mean, most of us invest in real estate, but just the way everybody lives their lives You see people that are just, I swear they're digital nomads, like in the group sometimes, like, and they're killing it. And, spending time with their family is just like, it really opened my mind to work on multiple aspects of my life. I think for a lot of times before just meeting people go abundance, I was just focused on like work and working out and family, but like you could, it taught me that I could balance everything out a lot better. So, and I really, I think I've been more about like, I haven't been as balanced as I have until joining the group. And I think it's just because there's now an awareness because I'm now friends with people, the same people that, you've been meeting and too. And so it just gave me a new kind of model. I could see how people are living and it's just like, oh, I didn't know that you could live that way. Does it make
Totally.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things somebody told me in entrepreneurship when I was like first starting is like, 2012, 13, 14, something like that. But I bet it like one of my neighbors had sold a company, did well, and then that company was acquired all the way up to the ultimate acquirer was Zillow. So
Oh,
it
wow.
kind of rode that wave. But went to lunch with this guy one day and he looked me in the eye and he goes, I don't think you understand how lonely this journey is, right? Talking about entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship, right? Mm-hmm.
And like, it's funny you talk about aha moments, right? That's definitely like one of my, top 10. It's really like, I think it was about a week later, I'm up at like 2 or 3 in the morning trying to figure something out, solve a problem on my own. And, I'm the only guy, right? So it's, he couldn't have been more right. And so I think that's why it's even more important to surround yourself with people that are going through similar things. In terms of problem solving, right? I mean, it's amazing that and celebrating the wins, right?
Yeah.
The normal stuff that we talk about, you can't necessarily post, in other places. So it's just having the freedom to be yourself
Yep.
and both in the good, bad, and ugly.
Yep.
It's just incredibly liberating.
That makes sense. Final questions for you because we're running out of time. What are you excited about in your business right now?
In my business, or I mean, I think there's so much opportunity with the asset class that we're diving into now. I mean, I just like I really I think the potential returns for the next 10 years are what I saw 10 years ago in short-term rentals. And so, it's a little scary trying to switch to an asset class when the other one's still riding high. But I really think that these returns are twice as good as what I saw in short-term rentals 10 years ago. So I think that's the thing I'm most excited for. Not just that, but now I'm also in a position where I can bring other people along with me, and help them be financially successful as a result of this venture, and really like genuinely impact other people's lives and families as a result of that too.
Yeah, and that's part of the fun. You give me something back, right?
Exactly.
What's your superpower? That's contributed to your success?
Oh man, my wife.
Nice, and you just got married.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody needs that
Support
government,
system,
right?
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah, and it's I'm 41. I just finally got married for the first
Uh,
time, so yeah. I mean, I think I try to not even even when my hair is on fire, to not be in a panic. And you really need that as an entrepreneur. But yeah, my wife balances me out, so I think we bring out the best in each other and really help each other maximize each other's life. So,
Oh, cool. Last question. Any final words? Any final advice for listeners, investors that are listening right now?
yeah, I'll leave your listeners with a quote that my first business partner gave to me. Actually, he went to the Austin event, the Champions event for Go Abundance here recently, and one of the speakers was talking about time and our relationship with time. And so this is something at 41 now, finally getting married and kind of taking that next step in my life and really trying to live with a sense of urgency and realizing that you can't live forever. It means a lot to me. So the quote is operate with true urgency. Learn like you'll live forever. Live like you'll die tomorrow. Time is undefeated. It always wins. The one thing that time can't take away from you is something that you've already completed. So that's really, I keep it on my desk. Obviously, that's not something that you presented me with before, but I keep it on my desk, and it's really a poignant thing for me and top of mind as I start each day.
Awesome, man. How can somebody get a hold of you?
Oh yeah, so actually just launched the personal brand website this week. So joshhatter.com, joshhatter.com, like the Mad Hatter. And there's actually all our social media is on there, and people can actually schedule a time to chat through that website as well if they'd like.
Very, very cool. Well, that's a wrap, folks. Josh, it was a pleasure meeting you and connecting with you virtually. Another go, bro. I know, a side note, I know you're going to be going on your honeymoon vacation soon. So good luck or have fun on that. It's like, where are you going to, by the way?
Aruba.
Oh, okay, got it. It's like I'll be in. So
Yep.
I'm gonna be in Tahoe while you're in Aruba. I hope,
Yes.
like a completely opposite like weather.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Anyway, I picked up a lot of great nuggets about the short-term rental space and bed and breakfast from you just right now, and I know my audience has as well. To my listeners, feel free to reach out to Josh directly if you have any questions for him. Connect with him. And thank you all for checking out this episode of the School of Cash Flow. And remember to leave me a podcast review on iTunes, as it helps me attract even more great guests just like Josh. So until next time, live life abundantly.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the School of Cash Flow. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into all the tips and tricks you can use to help you on your passive investing journey. In the meantime, you may visit www.cashflowschoolpodcast.com for more great episodes. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share. That's all for this episode, folks. See you next time.